The space station called Crescent Gate floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive structure made of metal and glass, spinning slowly in the empty void. Ships from 100 different worlds came and went from its docking ports. Today, it would host a meeting that could decide the fate of billions. Ambassador Park Jinna stood at the window of her small ship, watching the station grow larger as they approached. She was a woman in her early 50s, with gray streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen many difficult negotiations. She wore a simple dark blue suit, the official uniform of human diplomats. Behind her stood a young man. His name was Lee. He carried a small bag and a data tablet, and he wore plain gray clothes that seemed designed to be forgotten. His face was average, neither handsome nor ugly. His posture was slightly hunched, as if he was nervous. He looked exactly like what his identification said he was, a junior diplomatic aide, fresh from training, assigned to carry documents and take notes. This was, of course, a lie. Park Jinna turned to look at him. "Are you ready?" "Yes, Ambassador," he replied in a soft voice. "I have prepared all the documents you requested." She smiled slightly. They both knew he had prepared much more than documents. The ship docked with a gentle bump. Park Jinna took a deep breath and walked toward the exit, followed 2 steps behind her, exactly where an aide should be. His eyes, hidden behind a pair of simple glasses, were already scanning everything. The docking bay was crowded with aliens. There were tall creatures with blue skin and 4 arms. There were short beings covered in brown fur. There were things that looked like walking plants and others that seemed to be made of living crystal. The galaxy was full of strange life, and much of it had gathered here today. A group of officials approached them. They were Galactic Union representatives, the organization that kept peace between most of the known species. Their leader was a being called, a member of a species that looked somewhat like large gray birds with intelligent eyes. "Ambassador Park," said, bowing his feathered head, "welcome to Crescent Gate. We are honored by humanity's presence at these negotiations." "The honor is ours," Park Jinna replied with practiced politeness. "We hope these talks will bring peace to the border regions." His eyes moved too, "And this is my aide Lee. He will be assisting me during the negotiations." Looked at the young man for exactly 1 second before losing interest. Was clearly nobody important, just a nervous human carrying a tablet. "Of course," said, "please follow me. I will show you to your quarters." As they walked through the station's corridors, counted everything. He counted the guards at each intersection. He counted the cameras on the walls. He counted the steps between each security door. He noted which corridors were wide enough for combat and which were too narrow. He identified 17 potential ambush points, 4 emergency exits, and 3 structural weaknesses that could be exploited if necessary. His face showed nothing but mild anxiety, the kind any young aide might feel on his first major assignment. They passed a group of aliens that made Park Jinna's expression become carefully neutral. These were the other party in today's negotiations. They were tall creatures, standing nearly 3 meters high, with hard shells covering their bodies and multiple limbs ending in sharp claws. Their faces had too many eyes and mouths full of needle-like teeth. The Dominion had been expanding aggressively for the past decade. They had conquered 12 worlds along the border of human space. Thousands of innocent people had died. The war that followed had killed many more on both sides. Now supposedly they wanted peace. Park Jinna did not believe this for a moment. Neither did. The leader of the delegation was called. He was larger than the others, with a shell that had turned dark red with age. He stopped when he saw the humans approaching. "Ah," said, and his voice was like metal scraping against stone. "The soft ones have arrived." "Representative," Park Jinna said with a polite nod, "I look forward to productive discussions." Made a sound that might have been laughter. "I am sure you do, human, I am sure you do." His many eyes moved over her, then briefly touched on. "You bring only one servant. How? confident of you. I find that quality matters more than quantity, Park Jinnah replied smoothly. We shall see. Moved past them, his guards following. One of them deliberately bumped into as he passed, knocking the tablet from his hands. Scrambled to pick it up, looking embarrassed. Sorry, he mumbled, though he had done nothing wrong. The guards laughed. One of them said something in their clicking language that made the others laugh harder. Kept his head down and clutched his tablet to his chest. What no one saw was the quick flash in his eyes as he marked that guard, not with anger, with the cold, calculating attention of a predator identifying prey. Their quarters were comfortable enough. 2 connected rooms with a shared living space. Explained the station's facilities and the schedule for tomorrow's negotiations, then left them alone. The moment the door closed, his entire posture changed. His shoulders straightened. His hunched back became a soldier's stance. His soft eyes turned hard and alert. He swept the room with a small device hidden in his palm. 2 listening devices, he reported, his voice now firm and clear. 1 in the light fixture, 1 in the ventilation grate, both technology. Remove them, Park Jinnah asked. No, we will give them what they want to hear. A nervous diplomat and her useless aide. Park Jinnah sat down on the couch. They really do not know, do they? No, Ambassador. They see exactly what we want them to see. Lee was not a diplomatic aide. He was a captain in the Human Special Operations Division, one of the most classified military units in existence. He belonged to a group called the Shepherds, named for the old Earth profession of protecting flocks from predators. There were only 12 shepherds in the entire human military, and each one was worth an army. His body contained 14 concealed weapons, from microblades hidden in his fingernails to a neural disruptor built into his forearm. His bones had been reinforced with carbon fiber. His muscles had been enhanced to 3 times normal human strength. His eyes contained targeting systems, and his brain held a computer that connected him to human intelligence networks across the galaxy. He had been trained for 10 years in every form of combat known to humanity. He had completed 37 missions with a perfect success rate. His existence was classified at a level that most government officials did not even know existed. And he looked like a nervous young man with a tablet. They do not plan to negotiate in good faith, Park Jinnah said quietly. You know this. Yes, our intelligence suggests they intend to use these talks as cover for something else, possibly an assassination. Mind. Yours, possibly others as well. If they kill you here and blame it on a third party, they gain justification for renewed war while appearing to be victims. Park Jinnah nodded slowly. She had suspected as much. And our response? Moved to the window, looking out at the stars. Commander and the stealth ship Silent Dawn have been shadowing the fleet for 3 days. Sergeant Minyu and a tactical team are already on this station, hidden in maintenance areas. Intelligence Officer Han is monitoring all communications from a hidden location in the station's lower sections. He turned back to face her. If they try anything, we will be ready. If they don't, we have lost nothing but time. Either way, you are safe, Ambassador. Park Jinnah studied the young man who was not young, the aide who was not an aide. You know, I have worked with shepherds before. You are different. How so? The others were confident, proud of their abilities. You seem patient, like you are waiting for something. Considered this. I have found that patience is the most important tool in my work. The enemy will make a mistake. They always do. And when they do, I will be there. Outside their window, the flagship hung in space, its weapons dormant but ready. Inside the station was already meeting with his assassins, planning the murder of a human diplomat. None of them knew what was waiting for them. None of them suspected that doom itself was standing in plain sight, disguised as a forgettable young man with a tablet. And by the time they found out, it would be far too late. The morning of the negotiations brought tension that could be felt in the air itself. Ambassador Park Jinnah dressed carefully, choosing clothes that showed respect but not weakness. Behind her, returned to his role, his shoulders hunching slightly, his confident eyes becoming uncertain again. "Remember," he said softly, adjusting his plain glasses, "if anything feels wrong, touch your left ear. I will be watching." Park Jinnah nodded. She had worked with dangerous aliens before. She had faced threats and survived. But she had never felt quite so safe as she did with this quiet young man standing behind her. The negotiation chamber was a large circular room in the center of the station. A round table sat in the middle, with seats for all the parties involved. The Galactic Union representatives were already there when the humans arrived. The delegation entered moments later, their heavy steps echoing against the metal floor. Took his seat across from Park Jinnah. His many eyes studied her like a predator watching prey. Behind him stood 6 guards, each one armed with weapons that glowed with dangerous energy. Moved to stand behind Park Jinnah's chair. He held his tablet and looked nervous. One of the guards pointed at him and made a clicking sound. The other guards made sounds that seemed like laughter. "What did he say?" another alien delegate asked. His mouth twisted into something like a smile. "He said the human brought a small animal to carry her things, like a pet that walks on 2 legs." Some of the other aliens looked uncomfortable at this rudeness. Park Jinnah's expression did not change. "Shall we begin?" she said calmly. The bird-like union representative stood. "Yes, we are here to discuss peace between the Dominion and the human coalition. The recent war has cost many lives on both sides. The Union hopes we can find a path forward that benefits everyone." "The Union hopes many things," said the act. "We do not hope, we take what we want." "And yet you agreed to these negotiations," Park Jinnah observed. Turned his attention to her. "We agreed because the Union asked us. We are curious what the humans will offer to stop the war they are losing." This was a lie, and everyone in the room knew it. The war had not been going well for the human ships were smaller but faster, and human soldiers had proven far more dangerous than they had expected. But pride would not let admit this. "We propose a ceasefire along the current border," Park Jinnah said, pulling up a holographic map. "All fighting stops immediately. Both sides return to their previous positions. Prisoners are exchanged. Trade routes are reopened." Studied the map for a long moment. "Unacceptable." "Which part?" "All of it. The worlds we have taken are worlds now. We will not give them back." "Those worlds had human colonists," Park Jinnah said, her voice still calm. "Innocent civilians who had lived there for generations. They were in our way. They are no longer a concern." The meaning of his words was clear. Park Jinnah's hands tightened slightly under the table, but her face remained composed. Behind her, eyes had gone very still. "Perhaps we could discuss a different arrangement," suggested nervously. "A shared governance of the disputed territories." "The do not share," said. "We rule or we destroy. There is no middle ground with us." The morning session continued like this. Every proposal was rejected. Every compromise was mocked. Seemed to enjoy watching Park Jinnah struggle to find common ground where none existed. During a brief pause, one of the guards walked over to where stood. The guard was almost 3 times his size, covered in hard shell and sharp edges. "Human," the guard said, looking down at him. "You stand very quietly, like prey trying not to be noticed." Clutched his tablet. "I am just an aide," he said in a small voice. "I am not important." "No," the guard agreed. "You are not. None of your kind are. Soft little creatures who bleed so easily." He leaned closer, and his breath smelled like metal and something rotten. "I have killed many humans. They scream differently than other species. Higher pitched, like frightened animals." Looked down at the floor. "Please, I do not want any trouble." The guard laughed and walked away. He told the other guards what he had said, and they all laughed together. at the table was watching this exchange with amusement. Your servant is frightened, Ambassador. Perhaps humans are not suited for work among real warriors. Is here to assist me, not to fight, Park Jinna replied. Not everyone needs to be a warrior. In the Dominion, everyone is a warrior. Even our children can kill from birth. This is why we are strong and you are weak. Strength takes many forms, representative. Yes, and yours is the weakest form of all. You talk, you negotiate, you compromise. The do none of these things. We simply take what we want and we destroy anyone who stands in our way. Park Jinna met his many eyes without flinching. And yet here you sit, talking, negotiating. Perhaps you are not so different from us after all. For a moment, real anger flashed across his face. Then he controlled himself. We are here because the Union asked us, and because we are curious, nothing more. The session ended for lunch without any progress. As the delegation separated, followed Park Jinna back to their quarters. Neither of them spoke until the door closed behind them. They have no intention of making peace, Park Jinna said. No, checked his device again. The listening devices were still active. He began typing on his tablet, sending a coded message to Intelligence Officer Han. A response came almost immediately. Read it, and his expression became very cold. He wrote a message on the tablet and showed it to Park Jinna. Intercepted communications. Attack planned during afternoon session. 3 assassins. Target is you. Park Jinna read the message and nodded slowly. She did not seem afraid. She had known something like this might happen. She took the tablet and wrote back, "What do we do?" Took the tablet and typed, "We let them try, and we show them what happens when you attack a human diplomat." For the listening devices, they continued a conversation about lunch options and how tired they were from the morning session. 2 people pretending to be ordinary, pretending to be weak, pretending to be harmless. In another part of the station, Han was hunched over a communication console in a hidden maintenance room. She was a thin woman with sharp eyes and quick fingers, and she was very good at her job. She had broken the encryption in under an hour, and now she was reading every message they sent. The plan was clear. During the afternoon session, when the chamber would be at its most crowded, 3 assassins would emerge from hidden panels. They would kill Ambassador Park and several other delegates, then blame it on a radical faction opposed to peace. They would claim to be victims, and the war would continue under their terms. Han sent another message too, this time with detailed information about the assassins, their positions, their weapons, their timing. Read the message and began to prepare. In his quarters, Sergeant Minu received orders. He was a large man with a face and steady hands. He had been hiding in the station's maintenance tunnels for 3 days, along with 4 other soldiers. They had eaten field rations and slept in shifts, waiting for this moment. All teams, he whispered into his communicator, move to secondary positions. Be ready on my signal. Far away in space, Commander stood on the bridge of the Silent Dawn. The ship was hidden behind a cloud of space debris, invisible to all sensors. She watched the flagship on her screens. All weapons ready, her first officer reported. Hold position, she ordered. We move only when Captain Lee gives the signal. Everything was in place. The trap was set. All that remained was for them to walk into it. The afternoon session began an hour later. Took his position behind Park Jinna's chair, looking even more nervous than before. He dropped his tablet once and apologized repeatedly as he picked it up. The guards laughed again. They had no idea that in less than 30 minutes, they would discover exactly how wrong they had been about the quiet human aid. They had no idea that doom was standing right in front of them, and it was smiling politely while it waited for them to make their move. The afternoon session dragged on like a slow death. Ambassador Park Jinna continued to propose solutions, continued to reject them. The other alien delegates grew more uncomfortable as the hostility in the room increased. Stood perfectly still behind Park Jinnah's chair. To anyone watching, he appeared frozen with nervousness. In reality, every part of his body was ready for action. His enhanced senses could hear heartbeats and breathing patterns. He could feel the slight vibrations in the floor that told him where everyone was standing. His neural implant fed him a constant stream of information. Han was tracking the assassins through the station's sensor network. They were moving into position. "Perhaps we should take a short break," suggested. "The discussions have been difficult. Some rest might help everyone think more clearly." "An excellent idea," agreed, and something in his voice made attention sharpen. "Ambassador Park, would you like to use our private lounge? It is much more comfortable than the general facilities." Park Jinnah glanced briefly at. He gave the slightest nod, invisible to anyone not looking for it. "That would be lovely," she said. "Thank you for the offer." Made a gesture with one of his clawed hands. "Of course, my guards will escort you, for your protection." They left the main chamber and walked down a long corridor. 3 guards surrounded them, walked behind Park Jinnah, clutching his tablet like a shield. The guards led them to a room at the end of the corridor. It was decorated in style, with hard surfaces and sharp edges. There were no windows, only one door. "A perfect killing room." "Please make yourself comfortable," one of the guards said. "The representative will join you shortly." Park Jinnah sat down on one of the rigid chairs, stood beside her, tablet in hand. The guards positioned themselves around the room, blocking any path to the exit. 3 minutes passed, then 5, counted heartbeats and breathing patterns. The guards were getting more tense. Their hands kept moving toward their weapons. At minute 7, everything happened at once. 3 sections of the wall exploded inward. Behind them were the assassins, warriors in black armor, moving faster than their size should have allowed. One aimed a neural disruptor at Park Jinnah. Another swung a molecular blade that could cut through metal like paper. The third charged directly at, claws extended, clearly intending to remove the helpless human aid from the equation. The third assassin died first. Moved, it was not the clumsy motion of a frightened aid. It was something else entirely, fluid, precise, and impossibly fast. His hand caught the assassin's wrist in mid-swing. His other hand shot forward and struck the creature's neck at exactly the right angle. There was a sound like breaking stone. The assassin's eyes went dark and his body collapsed. Time seemed to slow down. The guard with the neural disruptor fired at Park Jinnah, but was already there, his palm outstretched. The energy blast hit something under his skin, a plate of advanced material that absorbed the charge. The energy crackled around his hand, then redirected. Threw the captured energy at the second assassin. It struck him in the chest, and he flew backward into the wall, his nervous system overloaded. The third assassin froze. His molecular blade was centimeters from Park Jinnah's throat, but he could not move it forward because his hand was wrapped around his wrist with crushing force. The quiet aid was gone. In his place stood something that they had never encountered before, something they had been warned about in old stories but had never believed was real. A human warrior at the peak of his abilities. His glasses had fallen off. His eyes, previously soft and forgettable, now held nothing but cold calculation. He looked at the assassin the way a machine might look at a broken component. "Drop it," said. His voice was quiet and empty. "Or don't." The assassin hesitated. He was a veteran of many battles. He had killed countless enemies, but he had never seen anything move the way this human had moved. He had never felt anything grip his wrist with such terrible strength. The blade clattered to the floor. The 3 guards who had escorted them were still alive. They stood frozen, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. 4 seconds ago, there had been 3 assassins and a helpless human. Now there were 2 dead, 1 prisoner, and something far worse than any of them had imagined. One of the guards reached for his weapon. Moved again. He crossed the room in 2 steps and struck the guard in 3 places. The guard's weapon fell from nerveless fingers. His legs buckled. He slumped against the wall, unconscious but alive. The other 2 guards dropped their weapons immediately. "Wise choice," said. He tapped a spot behind his ear, activating his communicator. "Sergeant, the lounge. I have 3 hostiles secured and 2 more unconscious. Ambassador is safe." "On our way," came the reply. "ETA 30 seconds. Turn to Park Jinnah. Ambassador, are you injured?" She stood slowly, smoothing her suit. Her hands were steady. "No, Captain, I am fine." She looked at the bodies on the floor. "That was very fast. They gave me no choice." I was not complaining. The door burst open. Sergeant Minu and his team poured into the room, weapons ready. They quickly secured the surviving, checking them for hidden weapons and binding their limbs. "Station security is on the way," reported. "We are also getting reports of chaos in the main chamber. The delegation tried to seal the doors, but our people were already in position." "Casualties?" asked. "None on our side. 3 guards got rough with Union delegates. They have been discouraged." Nodded, and their flagship smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "Commander sent her regards. The Sovereign's wrath is currently experiencing complete weapons failure. Something seems to have happened to their targeting systems." The silent dawn had struck. A stealth ship with weapons that could disable without destroying, crewed by specialists who had trained for exactly this situation. The fleet was suddenly helpless, floating in space with no way to fight back. Alarms were screaming throughout the station. Galactic Union security forces were rushing through the corridors, responding to reports of violence. But by the time they arrived, the situation was already under control. Human control was brought to the lounge 20 minutes later. He was escorted by Union guards and 2 of soldiers. His proud posture had changed. He moved like someone who had just discovered that the world was not what he thought it was. He stared at who stood calmly beside Ambassador Park. "You said you were the aide, the frightened little servant." "I was what you expected to see," replied. "Nothing more. But you killed 2 of my best assassins, in seconds, with your bare hands." "They were not your best. Your best would have looked more carefully at the enemy before attacking," tilted his head slightly. "You saw a soft human and assumed weakness. You saw a servant and assumed helplessness. You made the same mistake that many species have made when facing humanity. You underestimated us." Many eyes blinked rapidly. This is impossible. Humans are weak. Everyone knows this. You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. You are soft creatures who should have been conquered long ago." "And yet," Ambassador Park said quietly, "here you stand, captured. Your assassins are dead or prisoners. Your fleet is disabled. Your plan has failed completely." She stepped closer to him, and her calm eyes met his fury. "You thought you understood humans because you saw what we showed you. The diplomats who smile and negotiate. The colonists who build farms and raise children. The traders who want only peaceful commerce." She shook her head slowly. "You never bothered to look beneath the surface. You never asked why a species with no natural weapons managed to survive on a planet full of predators. You never wondered how we conquered our own world before we ever reached the stars." She gestured at who stood like a statue of quiet menace. "This is what waits beneath the surface. Not all of us, not even many of us, but enough to protect our people, enough to make our enemies regret their choices." Said nothing. For the first time since the humans had met him, he had no threats, no insults, no boasts. He simply stared at the quiet man who had destroyed his plans in 4 seconds of violence. The galaxy had just learned something new about humanity. It was a lesson they would not soon forget. The hours that followed the attack were chaos for some and calm efficiency for others. Galactic Union security forces rushed through the station, trying to understand what had happened. Emergency meetings were called. Communications flew between a dozen different worlds. But for the humans, everything was going exactly according to plan. Ambassador Park Jinnah sat in the main negotiation chamber, which had been converted into a temporary command center. Stood behind her, no longer pretending to be an aide. His posture was straight and alert, and other aliens in the room kept glancing at him nervously. The Union representative paced back and forth. His feathers were ruffled with stress. "This is unprecedented," he kept saying. "An assassination attempt during official negotiations. The Dominion has violated every treaty, every protocol." "They have," Park Jinnah agreed calmly, "and now they must face the consequences." "But what consequences? What can we possibly do? Their fleet is right outside, their warriors are everywhere on the station." Sergeant Minu stepped forward. He was no longer hiding in maintenance tunnels. He wore his full combat armor, and his team stood at attention behind him. "Their fleet is disabled, Representative. Our ship neutralized their weapons systems before the attack even began." "Neutralized? Stop packing. How? The flagship carries enough firepower to destroy a small moon." "Technology," said simply. "Human technology, the kind we don't usually show others." The door opened, and more aliens entered. They were representatives from other species in the Union, beings of different shapes and sizes, all looking confused and worried. They had heard reports of the attack but did not understand the full situation. Park Jinnah stood to address them. "Distinguished representatives, thank you for coming. I know you have many questions. I will explain what has happened." She activated a holographic display that showed the station and the surrounding space. 3 hours ago, the Dominion attempted to assassinate me and blame it on a third party. Their plan was to disrupt the peace talks and continue their aggressive expansion. The display showed the disabled flagship floating helplessly. This attempt failed. My protection team eliminated the assassins and neutralized the fleet. No innocent lives were lost. A crystalline being raised what might have been a hand. "How did you know about the attack in advance?" "Human intelligence intercepted communications days ago. We allowed the negotiations to proceed because we wanted to expose their true intentions to the galactic community." "You used us as bait," one representative demanded angrily. "I used myself as bait," Park Jinnah corrected. "I was the primary target. I accepted that risk to prove what they really intended. Now there can be no doubt, no diplomatic excuses, no alternative explanations." She looked around the room, meeting each delegate's eyes. "They have shown you what they truly are. Not warriors seeking honorable combat, not leaders seeking expansion for their people. They are murderers who would kill diplomats under a flag of peace." The room was silent. What she said was undeniably true. The evidence was clear. They had been caught in an act that violated every principle of galactic civilization. The door opened again and was brought in. He was escorted by Union security and two of soldiers. His shell had lost its proud polish. He looked smaller than before, diminished by failure. Park Jinnah turned to face him. "Representative, you came here promising to negotiate in good faith. Instead, you planned murder. What do you have to say for yourself?" Straightened slightly, trying to recover some dignity. "I have nothing to say. I demand to speak with my government. I demand the release of my people. I demand that your illegal actions against our fleet be reversed." "You demand?" His voice cut through the room like a blade. "You are in no position to demand anything." He stepped forward and involuntarily stepped back. The representative was 3 times size, covered in natural armor, equipped with claws that could tear through steel, and he was afraid of this small human. "Your assassins are dead or captured," continued. "Your guards have surrendered. Your fleet is helpless. Your plan has failed completely. And now you stand here making demands as if you have not just committed an act of war against the human coalition. It was not an act of war, protested. It was a misunderstanding, rogue elements acting without authorization. Lie, Han said, entering the room. She carried a data tablet and wore the uniform of Human Intelligence Services. We have complete copies of your communications, orders from the High Command, payment records for the assassins, planning documents with your personal signature. She handed the tablet too. It is all there, every detail. The Dominion's leadership planned this from the beginning. Feathers stood straight up as he reviewed the evidence. This is damning, complete and total evidence of conspiracy to murder a diplomatic envoy. The penalty for such crimes under Union law, Park Jinna said quietly, is severe. Military sanctions, economic isolation, possible intervention in Dominion territory to protect vulnerable populations. His confidence crumbled completely. You cannot do this. The Dominion is too powerful. Too many species depend on our trade. You cannot. We can, Park Jinna interrupted. And we will. But I am still a diplomat representative. I still believe in negotiation, so I will offer you one chance. The room went very quiet. Return immediately to your government. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that the assassination failed, that their fleet is disabled, that the evidence of their crimes is in Union hands. Park Jinna's voice was calm but carried weight like iron. Then tell them that humanity is offering them a choice. A choice. Option 1, full compliance with Union demands, withdrawal from all contested territories, release of all prisoners, payment of reparations to affected colonies, public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Made a sound of disbelief. The Dominion would never agree to such humiliation. Option 2, Park Jinna continued as if he had not spoken, is war. Not the limited conflict we have been fighting, total war. The kind that humanity has practiced for thousands of years, the kind that destroyed nations and reshaped continents on our. She leaned forward slightly. We have been holding back, Representative. We have been fighting defensively, protecting our borders, limiting casualties. We did this because we hoped for peace, because we did not want to unleash what we are truly capable of. Your attempt to murder me has changed the calculation. If the Dominion chooses war, humanity will respond with everything we have. Our fleets will not stop at the border. Our soldiers will not take prisoners. We will not rest until the Dominion is no longer a threat to anyone, ever again. Stared at her. You would not dare. The cost would be enormous. Millions would die. Billions have died in human wars, said quietly. We have experience. The room was completely silent. The other alien representatives looked at the humans with new eyes. They had always thought of humanity as a young species, soft and kind, too civilized for real violence. Now they were seeing something else, something that had been hiding behind the polite smiles and diplomatic words, something old and dangerous and patient. Captain Lee, Park Jinna said, please escort Representative to a communication terminal. He has a message to deliver to his government. Nodded, yes, Ambassador. He took by the arm, and the massive did not resist. He allowed himself to be led from the room like a child following a parent. When they were gone, approached Park Jinna. Ambassador, I must ask, would humanity really do what you threatened, total war? Park Jinna was quiet for a moment. I hope we never have to find out. I pray the Dominion makes the right choice. But if they do not, she looked at the stars visible through the window. Humanity has always done what was necessary to survive. We have destroyed ourselves again and again throughout our history. We have built weapons capable of ending all life on our planet. We have fought wars that killed tens of millions. She turned back to the Union representative. They think they are warriors because they have claws and armor and natural weapons. They have no idea what real warfare looks like. They have never faced an enemy who would burn their own cities rather than surrender, who would poison their own land to deny it to invaders, who would fight to the last child rather than submit. That is what humanity is, representative. Underneath the diplomats and the merchants and the colonists, we are survivors of the most brutal evolutionary testing ground in the known galaxy. We made it to the stars not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we simply refused to die. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They would do well to remember that. 6 months passed after the incident at Crescent Gate. In that time, the galaxy changed more than it had in the previous decade. The Dominion chose wisely. Faced with the evidence of their crimes and the threat of total war, the Dominion's leadership collapsed within weeks. Old rivals within their government seized the opportunity to remove the aggressive faction that had started the expansion. The new leadership agreed to every demand the humans made. They from all contested territories. They released prisoners who had been held for years. They paid reparations to the colonies they had attacked, and in a public ceremony broadcast across the Union, they acknowledged their wrongdoing and apologized for the assassination attempt. Ambassador Park Jinnah returned to Earth as a hero. Crowds gathered to greet her ship when it landed. Political leaders praised her courage and skill. News programs analyzed every detail of what had happened at the station. But Park Jinnah did not enjoy the attention. In every interview, she said the same thing. I was not the hero. I was simply present. The real heroes are the men and women of the Special Operations Division who kept me safe. They deserve the credit, not me. Of course, the Special Operations Division could not be publicly recognized. Their existence remained classified. Their identities remained secret. Captain Lee gave no interviews, attended no ceremonies, received no medals in public. He did receive a medal in private, though. In a small ceremony at a hidden facility, the Director of Human Security herself pinned a silver star to his uniform. For extraordinary service in defense of humanity, she said. Accepted the honor with a simple nod. Medals did not matter to him. What mattered was that his mission had succeeded. The ambassador had survived. The Dominion had been exposed. Humanity was safer than before. That was enough. After the ceremony, he was given a new assignment. A representative named Sira was departing for negotiations with a species called the Collective. She would need protection. Studied her file on the transport ship. Sira was young for a diplomat, only 32 years old. She had risen quickly through the ranks due to her intelligence and her unusual ability to find common ground with alien species. This would be her first mission outside human space. He met her at the departure gate. She was tall and confident, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. When she saw him, she smiled. "You must be my aide," she said, "Captain Lee." "Just representative. For the purposes of this mission, I am your junior assistant." She studied him for a long moment. "They told me you would be unassuming. They undersold it. You really do look completely harmless." "That is rather the point, representative." She laughed softly. "I read the reports from Crescent Gate. What you did there was impressive." "I did my job." "Your job was to kill 3 aliens in 4 seconds and disable an enemy fleet." "Yes, that was my job." She shook her head, still smiling. "I think I am going to enjoy working with you, Captain, even if I am not supposed to know who you really are." They boarded the ship together, carried her bags, and walked 2 steps behind her, already returning to his role. The other passengers saw a nervous young man with a tablet, exactly what they were supposed to see. The transport lifted off and headed for the stars. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, a rumor was spreading. It started among the passed from soldier to soldier in whispered conversations. The story of what had happened at Crescent Gate. The story of the quiet human who had seemed so weak, so frightened, so harmless, until he moved. The Who had been there told the story to anyone who would listen. How the assassins had attacked with perfect timing and overwhelming force. How they had been killed in seconds by a single human. How the entire operation had been anticipated, countered, and used against them. The story spread to other species. Traders carried it from station to station. Diplomats mentioned it in private conversations. Military officers analyzed it in classified reports. A new understanding of humanity began to take shape. They were not weak. They had never been weak. They simply did not show their strength unnecessarily. Humanity had spent their entire history fighting each other, fighting their environment, fighting everything that tried to kill them. They had developed warfare into a science, then an art, then something beyond either. And they had learned to hide what they were. The polite diplomats were real, the peaceful traders were real, the gentle colonists were real, but underneath all of that was something else, something that waited quietly, patiently, until it was needed. The shepherds were only part of it. There were other units, other capabilities, other weapons that no one outside humanity knew about. The galaxy had only seen a glimpse of what humans could do. A single captain, protecting a single ambassador. What would happen if humanity ever decided to show its full power? The thought kept military planners across the galaxy awake at night. New policies were quietly adopted by species that had previously viewed humanity with contempt. Trade agreements were renegotiated on more favorable terms. Territorial disputes were settled peacefully. Threats and insults that would have been common a year ago simply stopped. No one wanted to be the next to test human patience. No one wanted to discover what other surprises might be hidden behind those harmless-looking faces. A saying began to circulate in the darker corners of galactic civilization. A warning passed from species to species, from world to world. Never harm a human diplomat. You do not know what stands beside them. You do not know what waits in the shadows. And by the time you find out, it will already be too late. The humans heard this rumor, of course. Human intelligence services monitored everything. They did nothing to correct it. In fact, they encouraged it. Park Jinnah, now promoted to senior ambassador, gave a speech at the Galactic Union headquarters. She spoke of peace, cooperation, mutual respect. She talked about humanity's desire to be a positive force in the galaxy. But at the end of her speech, she said something that made every alien in the room pay close attention. Humanity offers friendship to anyone who wants it. We offer trade, knowledge, partnership, alliance. We have so much to share with the galaxy, and we want nothing more than to live in peace with all species. She paused and looked around the chamber. But we also protect what is ours, our people, our colonies, our diplomats. If anyone threatens what we love, they will discover that humanity is very good at protection. We have been protecting ourselves for a very long time. We have gotten very good at it. She smiled warmly. I hope no one ever has to learn that lesson the hard way, but if they do, well, they have been warned. The speech ended. The chamber applauded politely. And across the galaxy, in military headquarters and government buildings and royal courts, beings of many species considered what they had heard. The message was clear. Humanity was here to stay. They would trade fairly, negotiate honestly, and treat others with respect. They would be good neighbors and loyal friends. But they would never be victims. In a small ship heading toward distant stars, Captain Lee watched the recording of the speech on his tablet. Representative Sierra sat beside him, reviewing briefing documents for their upcoming negotiations. Good speech, she commented without looking up. Very diplomatic. Ambassador Park always was good with words. The part at the end wasn't just words, though, was it? It was a statement of policy. Considered this, I suppose it was. So that is what we are now, the friendly face hiding the iron fist. We have always been that, representative. The galaxy is simply learning to see it. Sierra finally looked up from her documents. Does it bother you, being the threat that everyone fears? Thought about the question carefully. He thought about the assassins he had killed, the plans he had destroyed, the lives he had saved. No, he said finally, it does not bother me. Fear keeps people from making mistakes, and mistakes get people killed. If other species fear what I represent, they will think twice before attacking our diplomats. That means fewer attacks, fewer deaths, more peaceful resolutions. He returned to his tablet, his face settling back into its harmless expression. I would rather be feared and never needed than loved and called upon constantly. The best weapon is the one that never has to be used. Sierra watched him for a moment longer, this quiet man who had become a legend among alien species. Then she smiled and returned to her work. Outside the ship, stars streamed past as they traveled toward their destination. Ahead lay negotiations, challenges, dangers both known and unknown. But humanity would face them the same way they had always faced challenges, with intelligence, preparation, and quiet strength. And somewhere standing in the shadows, doom would be waiting, patient, ready, harmless looking. Until it was time to move.